how to use dbDOS. I'm going to go over how to use the advanced configuration. Now before I do that, one of the things I wanted to show is how you can delete one of the configurations in there. And I have a dbase 5 example 1 which I built using the wizard, and I'm going to go ahead and delete that this time. So I'm going to go ahead, click on the red X. It's going to come up with the warning saying, are you sure you want to delete it? I do. Notice that it disappeared from my desktop, and it also disappeared from my browser structure. So now what I want to do is say new configuration. Now the first thing I'm going to do when I come into the new configuration is I'm going to go ahead and hit the advanced button. Now notice when I hit the advanced button that a couple of things. The first thing that you're going to notice is that we have our title bar, and there's that about box again. We also have our video, so if you click on that, you'll see this video right now. We have what kind of configuration we're making, and right now it's a command prompt configuration, and then it looks just like the wizard, but it's all on one screen. So I'm going to create a dbase 5, and we're going to call this a command prompt. So we can come in here and go command prompt. The next thing I have to do, just like I did in the wizard format, is I have to create a mounted drive. A mounted drive is the location of where the files or the executables or the data is located. So I can come in here. I'm going to go ahead and click on my folder, and I'm going to drill into my C prompt, and I'm going to go to dbDOS old. When I go ahead and click that, I'm going to say OK, and I'm going to make it C, and we'll say OK. Now this time I'm going to add another directory, and we're going to make this one go into my folder. I'm going to drill back into it again, just like I did the last time, but this time I'm going to do dbase data, and I'm going to drill into that and say OK. Now notice I have two directories set up, one called dbase old, dbase data, and one called dbase old. C drive is for the dbase old, D drive is for the data. Because I'm creating a configuration that goes out to the command prompt, I want it to start in the default directory, which is C:\dbase old. Now, if I slide this down a little bit, I don't want to add anything into the programs because I don't want to launch anything. I just want to go to the C prompt, and as you can see, I don't want to put anything into the launch parameters either because I'm going to the prompt again. Next, I'm going to look at my regional settings. Now again, my regional settings should be set up. It reads the operating system and tries to set them as closely as possible. However, you can come in here and change them to whatever format that you need to do that for. Next, after that, I've got my printer configuration, and this works exactly the same way it does with the wizard. I can pick interpreted printing, or I can pick raw printing. If I pick interpreted printing, I've got print preview, and I can set some additional things like the font size, the font type, and things like that, where raw basically takes whatever comes into the buffer and sends it right to the printer, bypassing the print spooler and everything else, and it tries to mimic that. Now, if your printer doesn't know what those characters are, it's not going to print right. If you have interesting character formats or different things that you're using from 20 years ago, things may not print correctly. The data will print, but it may not be as pretty as what it used to be. We are always working on trying to improve that as we go forward. Now, one of the things that I would like to do is come down into here, and we have a default printer. Now, default printer basically says that I can pick that printer, and then I'll never be asked the question again of which printer do I want to pick. For me, I leave that off because I have 4 or 5 printers that I'm trying to print to, and I want to see the differences between printers, so I need to be able to pick the different printers that I may be able to use. Now, in the advanced configuration, we offer some additional functionality that's not in the plain wizard because we think of the advanced wizard as being advanced. So as you can see, I have a code page in here. Now, we've set this to 858, which is the extended ASCII, which gives you the most characters in ASCII for printing, and this is because a lot of people do reports and things like that. However, when printing, you may have a situation where you need to use a different character set or different code page for a character set for printing. We allow you to change this if so desired, so you can come in here and change it to whatever you're looking for. Right now, 858 is the extended structure that we want. Last option in printing is also the timeout, and each timeout, keep in mind, is for each individual configuration. Configuration can have its own timeout, so one configuration can have a timeout of 30 and the other configuration can have a timeout of 20,000. Remember that each 1,000 equals 1 second. We believe that 5 seconds is a great time, and it's a good time that it doesn't slow you down in your work, and it makes sure that the processing happens correctly inside of the dbase program. So by default, it is set at 5,000, but it can be overridden at any time per configuration. About is the rendering options. Now by default we have the basic rendering. This gives us the most hardware compatibility for rendering the window. However, if you want to use any of the advanced features such as full screen mode or being able to pick your resolution that you want to start your program out with, then you have to pick either OpenGL or overlay. Now overlay is a little bit better than basic. It's not a lot better. It's pretty fast, but it's not that great. But it again has a higher level of hardware compatibility, and it will give you the ability to set full screen mode and also your resolution. However, for the top level, OpenGL rendering gives you the best functionality and capabilities out of the box. If you're using the latest and greatest Windows hardware, then I would recommend setting it to OpenGL because that's going to give you the most compatibility, most features, fastest writing, the whole 9 yards. At that point, you can pick full screen mode. Now keep in mind, with full screen mode, if you're in full screen mode, and remember back in the DOS days, there was only one screen, DOS. Today, if you say full screen mode and you're using interpretive printing, which pops up a window that gives you a print preview, you could have some window issues. I would recommend that if you're using interpretive printing, you don't use full screen because there will be conflicts between the windows. However, if you do get a conflict, you can always hit the Alt-Enter key, and that will take you out of full screen. Hit the Alt-Enter key and it'll put you back into full screen. And Alt-Enter works on any configuration type except for basic. It won't usually go into full screen because it's the hardware compatibility is not there. But remember, Alt-Enter, full screen, Alt-Enter puts you back into the window. Now for resolution, you can pick whatever resolution is available by your hardware. So we go out and read your graphics card and actually return all the valid resolutions that you could go with. Now for me, on this one, I'm going to go with 640. Now the last structure that we have is the launcher shortcut and options. And we can create a start menu shortcut, which will put it into the start dbDOS location. We can create a desktop shortcut, which will put it up here on the desktop like these over here. We can automatically leave or exit DOS if we so desire, but remember, because we're in a command prompt configuration, we don't want to exit as soon as you get done, because as soon as you went into the command prompt, you'd exit right back out. So that doesn't make any sense, and that is why it's unhighlighted right now. This option is only available in an executable form. And then we also have an advanced feature called Open Status Window, so that we could see for debugging purposes or memory purposes or something like that, if something's going wrong, it gives us the ability to get a little bit more information from dbDOS than what it shows right now. So once I'm done with that, once I have everything selected that I want, I can just go ahead and either hit the test configuration, which we'll test right now, or I can hit the save button. Now notice I have a dbase 5 up here at the top, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the start button, and you'll notice that this will kick off right here, and it took me right to the actual config. It took me right to the C prompt. So if I do a dir, you'll notice there's all my files. If I do a dir.*exe, there's all my executables. If I type in dbase and hit enter, it's going to go ahead and kick off the dbase structure. And if I go ahead and exit out of here, I'm also back at the C prompt. Now remember, in our configuration, we defined the D drive for the data. So if I wanted to, I could come in here and type in D:, and notice there's my D, and if I do a dir, there's additional data out there for us to go ahead and run. If I do a dir.*exe, there's a my vendor in here, so let me just see what my vendor does. I'm going to go out there, click on that, and what this will do is this will bring up the vendor options. So as you can see, once I'm at the prompt, I can basically do whatever I want. If I've defined the drives correctly and where my things are located, I can basically run it just like I did in a regular window. So from that standpoint, when I'm done with this, all I have to do is hit the exit key. So now that we came back to here, now all I have to do is go ahead and hit the X button right here, and this will go ahead and get rid of the DOS configuration we just created, update the screen, and we're back to normal. Thanks a lot for listening. I hope you have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.